Hello and welcome to the MindMerge podcast. I am Bram and sitting with me here is my friend Nick.
And we have known each other for about 10 years, and we'll be talking about life and how it has affected us.
Let's go on a journey navigating life's realities. Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode. About a year ago, I was graduating for my industrial design. I did design engineering, and I was in the research phase. It was kind of at the beginning, and I remember I had to do like a research about how different shops are like presenting their products. So what I did is I went through all different types of shops and everything, and I made like all types of pictures, and I used it as research for my project. But anyway, I think I was on my fourth or my fifth store, and I had most of the stores. I was set, but I was just like, I'm just gonna do one victory lap throughout the city, and we'll see. Maybe I'll come across another interesting shop, and I came. I was biking past a clothing store, and it looked pretty interesting. So the way they presented their products. So I went inside, I took a few pictures, and I ended up like talking with this girl. She was working there, and she was very interested in my project. So I had like a really fun talk with her, and we clicked very well. And okay, I was there for the research, and at one point I was just like, okay, well, thank you for everything, and blah blah blah, and I went back to the office, and I was sitting in the office, and I was like, man, she was pretty fun. I should have given my number to her or anything. At least I should have done something like that. And I was in this whole mindset of, man, I just had to do it. Like I couldn't think about anything else. I was just only I had this massive what if in my head. Like, what if I would have just given my number to her? And what if I just did it? And eventually I remember texting you guys in our group chat, like, okay, guys, force me to do this because blah, blah, blah. And then I remember, I think it was Luna. She was like, okay, bro, let's go for it. So eventually, like, I went back to the store, and I gave her my number. I sort of shrouded it in like this maybe excuse, where I was like, oh, if you're interested in the results of the research, here's my number, you can contact me or something like that. And I put my full number on there and my full name, so then she can check
Text
who,
you
who,
and find
who I
you.
am, and text and find me and everything.
Weren't you nervous?
Yeah, I was super nervous. I remember going. I remember going up to the store, and it felt surreal because I was so much in my head that it just didn't feel like I was actually biking there, and it was very it's very sort of weird experience. But there was this what if in my head was so big. So eventually she didn't text me, but looking back on it, that's totally fine, because I went back there and I was like, okay, well, at least I did it. I felt like this. I didn't care that she didn't text me.
You did it for you.
I did it for me, and I was so proud of myself. I did it because I was in the office, and I had this. There was such a big dilemma of my fear that I didn't want to go to her because I was afraid of rejection or an awkward conversation. But this what if in my head was so big that it probably would have ended up being like even more of a burden to me if I didn't go over there.
So like the rejection wouldn't have really mattered. It's just you went out there, you did it, you.
Yes, it didn't stay, like it didn't turn into a what if, because I went there and it eventually turned into an oopsie.
What do you mean by an oopsie?
We're gonna so with most situations when it comes to fear, there can be a what if. There's always what ifs in your life. There's always stuff you maybe want to do for some reason, but you're like, what if? Because you're being held back by fear. And you can turn any what if into either like a success story or into an oopsie. And I'm telling you, an oopsie is way better to live with than a
And
what if.
Because a what if, you would never know what actually would come out of it.
Exactly. Because looking back, maybe if it would have still been a what if, then I could have been telling this story, and I would have been feeling like this sort of feeling in my stomach where I was like,
What if?
what if I should have done it? I didn't. And since it's a oopsie, it's I'm telling this with like I'm in a way, you know, this is not to brag. I'm not telling this to brag. It's obviously I'm telling this because there's some sort of point to the story. I mean, we're talking about it a little already. But I'm telling this because I'm kind of proud of this moment in a way, even though she didn't text me. That's totally fine because the what if turned into.
Would you say now that it's easier for you to maybe give your number again because you've done it once, maybe you can do it twice?
Well, that wasn't necessarily the goal. But yes, I think so. I think this was one of the first times I did it. Since then it's come up more often. I did it more often before. And I feel like it's been easier,
Yeah, because it kind of reminds me, it's not exactly the same, but it kind of reminds me of a story that I had about 2 years ago now. I was doing a study. It was math teacher, and I was doing it for a couple of years. And I think for a while I was unhappy, but I didn't have the courage to change it because you don't know where you're going. You don't know what's going to happen if I change it. You're further behind again on other people, your classmates, your friends. And it's a lot of things to be scared of. And I couldn't make a decision, even though I wasn't fully happy with what I was doing. But then I went to Milan and I actually had a conversation with my friend Maurice. And I think being away from all of the things to be scared of and being in your own place,
all the external factors.
Yeah. You're suddenly in your own little bubble, and all of those things are very far ahead or far away from you.
Yeah.
And you actually have time to think. But because I already changed courses once before, it was even more difficult to face that fear of trying to change it again.
Yeah.
But eventually I made the change.
Yeah.
And
you've been happy ever since.
Yeah, but it was difficult to face. It was difficult to change it.
Yeah.
And
what were you afraid of?
I think letting people down. I think that was a big letting my parents down because, you know, you spent money on your education. You spent multiple years doing a certain education and you sort of want to finish it, even though maybe you're not happy with it anymore.
Yeah.
So it sort of feels like, okay, I'll just finish this. I'll just do this in order to have an education.
Yeah.
But would it really make me happy? So I was really scared to get out of my comfort zone there and step into something new, something completely unfamiliar, not really sure where it would go.
Yeah.
But after making that change, I realized that fear is not only failing, but it could also be an opportunity of growing into something bigger, into something different. And eventually realizing that part is that fear can be seen as an opportunity of failure, but it can also be seen as an opportunity of growth. And I think when I finally made that change, I grew so much, finally deciding for me and not having the fear of what other people might think or how other people might feel, but just picking you for you.
Yeah.
Putting yourself on number one, I would say.
That's a very good motivation, but also, did you feel like you eventually let down your parents or your friends?
I think what matters eventually is that my parents want me to be happy and my friends want me to be happy. And I don't think my friends would judge me for changing my studies and for not, I'm still the same person.
Yeah.
I don't see myself another way. My friends wouldn't see me another way.
Yeah.
And I think my parents are happy that I made a decision that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Even though in the beginning I wasn't sure what they would think, I wasn't sure how they would see me, I wasn't sure what my friends would say or people around me.
Yeah.
But I guess in the end is what matters is if I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. So, and are you happier now that you made that decision?
I think it's one of the first decisions I made for me in my whole life. Before that, sure, I made decisions for me, but I think for a long time I was always thinking what other people thought was good for me. Let's say my parents, they're older, they're wiser, some sort of way, they have more life experiences.
Yeah.
So maybe they are the ones to tell me what is good for me.
Yeah.
Because you have certain trust in them.
Yeah. And I mean, for a long time, you do listen to your parents. Obviously,
Exactly.
when you're growing up, I mean, you're really dependent on them. So, yeah, it makes sense that you're very scared of what their reaction to this will be.
But I think after a while, you have to realize that what your parents are thinking might not always be the best thing for you. Yeah. Sure, they might have the best thing in mind, and they really want what is best for you because they've made mistakes, they learned from it, and they want you to not make those same mistakes. So maybe they sent you down a certain path that you follow and you think this is good for me, this is good for me, but never asking myself what is good for me.
Yeah, really, yeah.
And that's why I was afraid to get off of that road, what they think is good for me, because they had no bad intentions. They had no bad things. They were like, okay, you like math, you like the social part, you like to hang out with teenagers.
Yeah.
So
you're saying you're a massive nerd? No, but the reason, obviously, why we're telling these stories, the moral of the story is at first we were really held back by fear, and reveal the subject of the episode is fear.
But also your comfort zone.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how fear and comfort zone are related, and. So in both of the stories, we were being held back by fear. My example is very, very small. It's it's really one specific scenario, one specific moment. And for you, obviously, it's more of a longer, bigger life choice.
It's sending me in a completely different direction in life.
Yeah.
And I think, let's say you're in a bubble, you're in a balloon, and that is your comfort zone. It's really nice to be in your bubble, in your balloon, where it's nice and cozy, and you know what is in your balloon. But what if you're not happy in your balloon? What if you're not happy with the size of your balloon? What if you're not happy with the amount of space you have, how much you can move? And outside of that balloon is where you're scared.
Yeah.
Because you're outside of your comfort zone.
I think we're getting a little ahead of the story. I think maybe it's good to first maybe talk a little bit about how fear and your comfort zone are related. Obviously, fear is there to serve a purpose. It's there. It's a survival aspect in life, and people talk. I think we've talked about the comfort zone a few times, and the comfort zone, for the people who don't know, it's basically everything that's comfortable for you. It's being at home with your parents, or maybe that's not really a comfort zone for that many people, but anything where you're feeling safe and where it's easy. It's pretty hard to step out of the comfort zone because you're being held back by fear. Your fear, there will be a voice in your head which is saying like, oh, maybe don't go outside the comfort zone because there are scary things over there, and maybe you get into awkward conversations, and maybe you'll be this and that. And what we've learned throughout life, and what we hear a lot of people saying in life is everything worth living is outside your comfort zone. Because making new friends, your friends are in your comfort zone, but you've made your friends by stepping out of your comfort zone. If you have a partner, that person will very likely be in your comfort zone. But especially for, gaining a partner, that requires a lot of outside comfort zone activities. And there's a very obvious, when it comes to social relationships or romantic relationships.
Both relationships.
What?
Both relationships.
Yeah, any types of relationships. So they're always outside your comfort zone, but this is a very well-known fact. People, even though it's hard and you're nervous to do it, people tend to do it because we're very social people. But there's so much more outside your comfort zone, which is worth living. I mean, when it comes to career paths as well, it would have been so easy for you to keep on studying a math teacher because you did it already, and you're signed up and you're in your second year or whatever. You invested some money in it. It's the easy choice.
Yeah, it's comfortable. You know what is coming. You know what you're going to do next year. You know what you're going to do the year after. You have a plan. You have a path, and you can just follow the path without thinking about what your path is going to be.
Yeah.
So you have no things to be scared of. But when you suddenly stop your study, what are you going to do? Where am I going to be in 6 months? Where am I going to be in a year?
Exactly.
What if this is a bad choice that I'm making?
And there's so much insecurities. If you're looking at it rationally, there's so much that could go wrong. Or maybe it's your feelings as well that's telling you to not do it. But are you happier now than you would have been if you would have still been studying math teacher?
Yeah, definitely. Because when I was studying, it was fine. Like the study was fine. My life was okay. But it wasn't good, or I wasn't fully enjoying it. But it was better than being scared of what was going to happen in my head.
Yeah.
Because if I know what's going on, I have nothing to be scared of. I have nothing to worry about. But if I dive into the deep, what is going to happen?
Yeah.
And you have all of these thoughts about what could go wrong, if it could be worse, what if it's a bad choice. But there's also so many things that could go right.
Yeah. But it's so hard to see, though.
It's so hard to see them if you're constantly worried about what could go wrong.
Yeah.
Because I think changing it felt like a part of an opportunity of failure.
Yeah.
Opportunity of failure. Option to fail.
Yeah.
Like there are so many ways to fail.
Yeah.
But apparently, when realizing now, there are also so many ways to grow.
Yeah.
And I think being out of your comfort zone is an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
Because when you don't leave your comfort zone, if you don't leave your bubble, there's no way for you to expand. There's no way for you to grow. There's no way for you to become a bigger person.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, you're so afraid of failure, and that makes sense. So am I. Everyone's afraid of failure. But the thing is, stepping out of your comfort zone in itself is already big enough of an achievement that it doesn't really matter how hard you fail. You can deal with it. It's going to be fine. An example would be so, for example, the story I was saying about, my comfort zone was in being in the office and be like, she was a lot of fun. I could have gave her my number, but let's not do it because I might get rejected or whatever. Then I don't fail. I do nothing, which, as we talked about last episode, is doing nothing is more of a failure than
actually trying.
So being over there, technically I was rejected. Technically she didn't text me back. Technically I failed, but I'm telling you, it does not feel like a failure because it's I made an oopsie.
Yeah, you made
I made a what if I made an oopsie.
But at least you tried.
Yeah, and it is because I tried that I turned my what if to an oopsie. And the oopsie, it's just I'm calling it an oopsie because it's like cutesy, because it doesn't have any failure. It's no big deal. It is what it is. I tried, and that's the biggest achievement.
Yeah, because let's say you do that five times in a row, you give your number to 5 different women, and 4 times you have an oopsie, and the 5th time you actually succeed, then are the 4 times before an oopsie? because of course they're an optie, but they're not something that you're failing because eventually it was worth it.
Exactly. They're still, they're worth it. And, you know, they could have also been a moment of like learning where maybe in the first time I did it, like I was super awkward about it and I said something weird. And then I was like, okay, I shouldn't say that again. So then the second time I don't say it, but it's still kind of weird. And then the third time I made a joke and I'm like, oh, this joke was pretty funny. So then I make the joke the fourth time and then the fifth time. And then because of the joke, the fifth person likes me, for example. Just a very basic example. I would have never made that joke if I didn't have the 4 times before.
The other experiences from which you learned.
Exactly. And even though, you know, you could see it as a failure because you didn't, she didn't text you back, or that person didn't text you back. But looking back on it, it was actually necessary in order for the fifth time to succeed. And that's another point about why it's important to step out of your comfort zone. It's never immediately apparent why you did it or why you should have done it or what you learned from it.
In the moment.
Yeah, because only looking back, you're like, because I did the 4 times before, I learned how to make the joke the fifth time, and then that really worked. So now so looking back on it, the first 4 times were learning opportunities. But at the moment itself, if I would have been at the first time or the second time and gave the number, I could have never ever expected that was a learning opportunity. Yeah. I just didn't know yet. I'll just have to be patient.
You couldn't have done what you did without your 4 oopsies before.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it feels to me like when I was taking my driver's lessons. Yeah. The first times you're going to make a lot of oopsies.
Yeah.
And you're nervous, you're scared, you don't know what you're doing, you're just driving the car, there's this guy or woman sitting next to you, and you don't know what you're doing. You're making oopsies. The first time, there's going to be a lot of oopsies. The 5th time, there are going to be a lot of oopsies. The 10th time even, there are going to be a lot of oopsies. But when I look now, where I'm now, driving the car, I'm so glad that I went through that fear, went out of my comfort zone to do it, because I wouldn't know what I would be doing without a car and without my driver's license now. Yeah,
for sure. We talked about the driver's license, the driving lessons last episode as well. And it's so crazy how in life there's so many different moments. Like looking back on it, there's actually so many moments where you're stepping out of your comfort zone. For example, taking driving lessons, making new friends, getting a partner or whatever. And those are in a way very, even though they're nerve-wracking, they're very obvious to make because everyone's doing it, right? So if everyone's going through that fear, I can do it as well. But you don't need other people to show you can go through that fear. There's so many other moments or so many other things in life where you can get through that fear out of your comfort zone. For example, with career, in my experience, there's actually not that many people that really step out of their comfort zone with their career, for example. I think if you would truly ask anyone in the world if they're actually happy with their jobs, I think there will be a big percentage of people that's telling you, nah, I'm not really happy, but you know, I have to pay my mortgage and I have kids and this and that and everything. Yep. And you know, those are some very good excuses, but there's also, you know, it's also a way of staying in your comfort zone.
Yeah, of course. You know the job that you're doing, you're familiar with the work, you're familiar with the people, you have your schedule, you work from Monday till Friday from 9 till 5. There's nothing else to think about. You just follow the routine. Yeah. If you stop that routine, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the bills? Where am I going to go? What do I actually like? Yeah. Because maybe I don't like my job now, but I'm also not sure what I would want to do really. Yeah. And let's say I think a lot of the times that might also be with relationships. being in a comfortable relationship is easier, or maybe you're not fully happy, but at least you know the person, you know the relationship, you know where
Yeah.
it's going. I think a lot of people are unhappy in a relationship too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think for work relationships, I think for a lot of, I think for everything, pretty much everything that makes you in your comfort zone where you feel safe,
Yeah.
even though you're not happy, it's better to be safe and not happy than being scared and possibly happy, I think. Unsafe.
Well, so now it sounds like you're saying it's better to stay in your comfort zone.
No, I think for a lot of people, they think that way.
Yeah, that's what they think.
Yeah, but it's not actually because you have all of those fears of the possibilities of that might happen.
Yeah.
So you feel more safe in your comfort zone,
Yeah.
but you're probably more unhappy in your comfort zone if you never get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. It's if you're always in your comfort zone, at one point you just become stationary in life. While if you move out of your comfort zone, you stay in motion. You keep on growing. And that's the thing about your comfort zone. It's always, your comfort zone has a certain area.
Mm-hmm.
And the area, if you step out of your comfort zone, the area will be bigger. But over time, sadly, it will slightly get smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. And this is, now we're getting into the metaphor we were talking about today. It's being in your comfort zone is like being, you're in like a, let's say in like a inflatable house.
Sure.
It's like your house is like one big balloon. And in order to get out of your house, you have to get like through this small wrinkly door, and it's very uncomfortable to get through.
Yeah.
But you can do it, but it's very uncomfortable. So you'd rather just stay in your house. But the thing about your inflatable house is it's slightly deflating
over time.
Yes, over time, because of the entrance, it's not fully airproof. So over time, your house is slightly shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and that's kind of like your comfort zone. And in order to, and outside your shrinking, deflating house, there's an air pump, but you have to get outside of your house in order to inflate it again. So what you have to do is you have to get out of your house, which is very uncomfortable
and scary, maybe even.
Yeah, and you're like nervous and you don't want to do it. You're like, man, I have to go outside of my house again. So then finally you're outside your house. You're like pressing the pump, and maybe outside of your house could be like a wasteland with monsters. And I'm not saying that outside your house it's all perfect.
All butterflies.
Your house inside is butterflies, but outside is very unpredictable. So, but anyway, you quickly go outside, you press your pump, and then your pump goes for a while, and then quickly back into the house, and you're back into the house, and it's like
suddenly I have all this space.
Exactly, and that's kind of what getting out of your comfort zone is like.
Yeah, I feel like when you grow up as a child, you dance, you sing, you laugh, you're doing all of these things because you have such a big comfort zone, because you're not really aware of the world around you and that people might think things about you. You're just you as a child, you don't really care. You become a teenager, suddenly maybe it's not okay to dance and to smile and to sing in front of other people because they're laughing at you, and suddenly you lose a whole room in your house because you're okay, I can't do this because those people will laugh at me, and your comfort zone becomes smaller and smaller. I think to a point, if you never get out of your comfort zone, you suddenly only have the toilet left. You have no space to dance, no space to move. You're locked up in your small little room, and everything feels scary. Yeah. Because as soon as I move my arm out, I touch the wall, I touch the balloon, and it's like, oh, that's scary because I'm almost out of my comfort zone. Yeah. And I think then it is the most difficult to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. The smaller it is.
Yeah, because the smaller it is, the longer you haven't been outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And so you're training yourself to get to stay in your comfort zone. And when your comfort zone is shrinking, it's everything that used to be your comfort zone is now outside of your comfort zone. So talking to people, to friends, could be inside your comfort zone, but then since it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, that means no,
No.
talking to my friends is now outside of my comfort zone. And before you had all these things that were in your comfort zone, but if you're training yourself to stay inside it, then everything that used to be normal for you will also be outside of your comfort zone. So it's kind of like this negative this negative like circle. How do you say
Cycle.
Negative cycle you're in. Because on one hand, you're training yourself to be inside your comfort zone. And on the other hand, more and more things are getting... So you're like...
outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So even more and more you're getting confronted with it's a negative cycle.
Yeah, like let's say 5 years ago you used to be social, going to parties, doing that, talking to strangers, you wouldn't care, and suddenly you're too afraid to even talk to someone, you're too afraid to go to a party because you have all of those, what could go wrong, maybe I'm awkward, maybe I say something weird, maybe this, maybe that.
Yeah,
because you let your balloon or your house deflate too much.
Yeah,
like that room used to be in your comfort zone, and suddenly it's not.
Yeah. So what was your comfort zone like in your depression?
Being in bed, watching TV, being at home. I used to have a gym at home that used to be my comfort zone because I wouldn't want to go to the gym because what if I do something weird? What if people look at me? But it was also getting there was already difficult.
Yeah.
Because I used to be very easy going out, going to places, but it felt like I always talked about this invisible barrier around you or this invisible wall that it was really hard to get through. And I think now it actually makes sense if I talk about the balloon or the house, because you actually had to wrinkle your your way through that little hole. Yeah. To get outside of that comfort zone and actually change something about your behavior, change something about your life.
Yeah.
And it makes sense now.
Yeah.
And I think the more I did that, the more I went out, the more normal it got. Mm-hmm. So the more I went to the gym, the more I went to parties, the more I spent with people. Suddenly, after a while, my room was inflated again. Mm-hmm. So I could actually go to the party, I could go to the gym without even thinking about it twice.
Now it's in your comfort zone. Now
exactly the same as driving. It's automatic now.
Yeah. Well, it used to be such a massive thing for you, and now you're not even thinking about it.
Yeah, because it's in your comfort zone.
Exactly.
And all the things in your comfort zone you don't really think about. And you shouldn't assume that as soon as I go to the gym once, it's going to be in my comfort zone. No, only 5% of that whole idea is going to be in your comfort zone. You have to push yourself through that maybe 20 times, maybe even 100 times. I wouldn't know. It all depends on the person and what you're trying to do and what kind of thing it is outside of your comfort zone. But it's not a one-time thing. It's not that after I do it once, it's going to be completely normal.
No. Yeah, that's the thing. Your comfort zone, you always have to keep on actively doing it. And like you're saying, expanding your comfort zone is also one step at a time. I feel like every single podcast episode we talk about one step at a time.
Yeah, but okay. It is one step at a time.
Yeah, and it takes a while to keep on expanding it. So what are your tips for people who are trying to get out of their comfort zone? How do you do it? How do you break through the fear?
Appreciate the small steps that you're making. Because let's say I used to never go to the gym, and now this time I went to the gym, and then the second time it's suddenly, I'm not feeling it. I'm not really there's this wall again, and it's difficult. But you already went once. Okay, you've made that step. You've acknowledged and appreciate that the thing that you have done, and not put yourself down again. Oh, I tried it once, but now I can't do it again. It's so difficult. It's so this. Okay, but it's okay. You can try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
So don't let one little mistake, don't let it, if you don't succeed once, it's okay. You can try again and again and again.
Yeah. And another what another tip would be, the reason you're always in your comfort zone is because you're thinking too much. That's definitely a problem for me. I think maybe a problem for you.
Mm-hmm.
It would. I'm so jealous of people who are just absolute doers because it's so hard to shut off this big old brain,
Yeah.
or maybe tiny old brain in my case. No, but so since thinking isn't really getting you anywhere, what my tip would be is doing, but that's easier said than done. So okay, so now you still have to do a little step of thinking. Think about, okay, so what would doing look like? Let's say I'm trying to so I made the decision to step out of my comfort zone, but I'm so nervous and my brain is going crazy over all the consequences. How do I get out of my brain and into action? A very useful tip I read in a book called Atomic Habits, which I love and would recommend to anyone. It's the 2-minute rule. There's a few different interpretations of the 2-minute rule, but the one I'm referring to is just focus. What are you guys laughing about? Okay, just focus on the first 2 minutes. Oh, I think okay, whatever. Okay, so just focus on the first 2 minutes. So let's say you want to go to the gym. Okay, maybe I feel like we're using going to the gym a lot. I want to use a different example. Let's say just going outside your house to buy groceries, or maybe going to the library to get a book,
or doing your laundry.
Exactly.
Cleaning your room, anything.
Like let's say going outside of your house for what particular reason is outside of your comfort zone. Instead of focusing on the whole thing, on being like, oh, but then I need to go to the supermarket, like the grocery store or the library or whatever. Just think about, okay, what do we need to do in the first 2 minutes? I need to put on my shoes and I need to put on my jacket. And I'm just going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to put on my shoes, put on my jacket, and then just step out of the door. And once you sort of cross the very first threshold of the first minute you're outside, then be like, okay, so then I need to go to my bike, because we're Dutch, we bike everywhere. But maybe it could be your car.
I don't have a bike.
Go to, I mean, see where this man lives.
I'm very happy with my car.
He needs a car here. But just go for the first 2 minutes, like the next 2 minutes. Just try to force your brain into like the doing instead of the thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be perfect if you could try to shut off your brain and then just go full robot mode and just don't try to think about it. That's maybe exactly the reason why when I talked about the story where I gave my number to the girl, it's exactly the reason how it felt so weird to just be on my bike going back to that store. It felt so surreal. It didn't feel like I was in the real world because I shut off. I feel like I shut off my brain.
Mm-hmm.
At least I try to, because I was just like, okay, I just need to do it, not think about it. I had to look around. I was like, where am I? Because I was just a robot going there. I had one task: go there, give number, go back. That was my task, and that helped me so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only thing that's stopping you is your brain. It's not your body that's stopping you. So shut off your brain if you're able to do it. I think try to think of a way, how can I shut off my brain? It's kind of counterintuitive. Shut off your brain, just go do it.
So what you're saying is that maybe as soon as you take that first step, as soon as you put on your shoes and actually open the door, that is already you getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because that is the most difficult step, to actually make the first step.
Yeah.
And not think about when you're at step number A, that you already have to be at step number Z about what could happen and what you have to do, but just take the steps a lot smaller.
Yeah. And it's like you're wrinkling yourself out of your house. It's like, because the first step, getting out of your house, is the most uncomfortable one. And once you're outside of your house, you're already outside of your comfort zone, then might as well just continue doing the rest. like we were saying, outside of your house, outside of your comfort zone, will also be very scary, will also be nervous. But at least you made the very first step of getting out of your comfort zone. So the rest will be easier.
Yeah,
At least in my experience.
You're already outside. You already have the inflatable balloon pump. You can already start, and it's going to be work, and it's going to be scary. But you are already there, so
You're at the pump.
So it's easier to actually pump up or inflate your balloon.
Since you're there, might as well try to get it as big as possible.
So I guess it makes sense in a lot of ways. Going to the gym, going to school, going to work, doing your groceries, doing anything, you have to step out of the house, literally.
Yeah.
So maybe if you really see the house as your comfort zone, also in real life, you're in your house, you're in your comfort zone, get out of the house. That is the first step. And then what you're saying is that the steps afterwards are possibly easier.
This is mainly for people, what we were talking about. You know, if you're in a depression, you have a very small comfort zone, it's very hard for you to step out of it, then, you know, getting outside of your house would be outside of your comfort zone. For me personally, getting out of my house, going to the library, going to the grocery store is in my comfort zone. What's outside of my comfort zone are more, you know, opportunities that don't come along as much, right?
But let's say you went over to that girl to give her your number. You had to get out of the house.
Yeah.
So with all of the things pretty much that you have to do or that you want to do or things that are scary are outside of the house.
Yeah.
Physically, literally.
For me, getting up from my desk and going to downstairs from the office to my bike, that was scarier than that's maybe not completely true. I think there were different moments which were scarier or less scary, but it was more the moments that were the scariest were getting up from my desk and walking to my bike, and entering like the store, because it's sort of stages of you know, if you know, it's the first step of getting from the chair. If you're on your way, you're on your bike, then, you know, you sort of cross that threshold. Then there's not a threshold of entering the store, you know, entering the building that's someone in. So there will be like thresholds throughout the whole process, but it's not necessarily like the moment I gave her my number, like, you know, uttering the first word of my sentence was again a threshold, but finishing the rest of my sentence was fine. Giving her the number was fine, and then walking away was fine. You know, okay, so the walking away, then you're done. Like walking away is like you're quickly running back into your house again. But so there'll always be, if you're trying to do something outside of your comfort zone, there'll always be like thresholds you need to go across. Just be aware of the thresholds and push yourself through the thresholds, and don't think when you're crossing the thresholds, because the thresholds are the scariest.
Yeah, no, but I get it, because sometimes for me, what I like to do is there's a pool behind us and it's pretty cold, but a lot of the times it's very difficult to get into the cold water. It's very difficult to push yourself through that barrier, and it sort of feels like the same for me. Getting out of my comfort zone is getting into the water.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Yeah, and it keeps being difficult. It's never getting a lot easier, and I don't know, because it's very sometimes even painful for how cold it is.
Yeah,
but I think it's the same.
This is exactly the reason why people take cold showers, because people take cold showers in the morning, and the reason they do it is that there's some physiological advantages, but it's mainly so they cross a threshold every single day.
Yeah.
And doing a cold shower will probably be the hardest thing you'll have to do all day.
Yeah.
Not always. There are so many more things in life that are more difficult than taking a cold shower, but you almost never come across them.
But let's say for me, sometimes it's difficult to do all of the laundry. If I can force myself to get into a cold pool, it is easier for me to do the laundry than to get into the pool. So if I can get into the pool, I can do the laundry.
Yeah, exactly. Because you already did this. Like, doing a cold shower will all be over there in your comfort zone. So if this your comfort, like, okay, so it's kind of hard for people that are just listening. So the cold shower is so far out of your comfort zone, you have to reach all the way over there. So it's almost like you're dragging your comfort zone along with you. And since you have to drag your comfort zone all the way over there, you're really expanding it to get to the cold shower. And the cold shower will quickly be out of your comfort zone again. But since you dragged your whole comfort zone over there, like whoop, oh my god, laundry is now also in my comfort zone. And cooking is now also, and talking to friends.
You know what it maybe feels like is when you have your house and you have the little hole that you have to get through. As soon as you take a cold shower or you jump into a cold pool, you're sort of expanding the hole. So when you get out of the comfort zone, maybe it's not as uncomfortable to get out. So even being there, but it's easier to take that first step. And I think the more that you do it, the bigger the hole gets. And eventually maybe it'll even become a door. So you can easily go in and out. And even though the outside feels scary, you know that it's not always something to be scared of. It's all in your mind. It's all a mind game.
That's a very good addition, because I fully agree. The more you get out of your comfort zone, the easier it is to get out of your comfort zone.
Because if you don't get out, it's like this small little hole that you have to squeeze yourself through. But the more you use something, the bigger it gets.
That's what she said. No. So I want to talk about like the end stage of. So I'm not necessarily going to say I'm one of those people. I don't think I am, but there's quite a few people that have mastered getting out of your comfort zone. And the sort of end stage is to use discomfort as a guidance. So there's quite a few people, influencers, who are preaching this. Anything that's making them uncomfortable, they're going to do it. And just anything they think is uncomfortable, they're going to chase whatever is discomfort for them, right? Because it is true, everything worth living is outside of your comfort zone. So might as well, if you really want to live, chase that discomfort. That's a philosophy which I for the majority agree with. I also think there's nothing bad about being in your, I really need to emphasize this. There's nothing bad about being in your comfort zone. It's so nice to just be on the couch with your partner and watch a movie, or just have fun with your friends, that everything in life's easy, The comfort zone is there for a reason. Enjoy it.
As long as you enjoy it in your comfort zone.
Well, the thing is, the comfort zone will always be slightly decreasing. Your house will always be slightly deflating. So that's exactly why it's important to keep on getting out of your comfort zone, because you need to get back outside to the house and start inflating it again.
So what you're saying is enjoy your time inside of your comfort zone, but don't stay in it for too long.
Make sure to do something scary every now and again.
Every now and then, like right now.
Man, it's raining.
Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Okay, fuck it, bro. Goddamn, look at this dude. I don't have any clean clothes. Well, there you have it, guys. Get out of your comfort zone. Can you zoom in, Maurice? At this very moment, Nick has just jumped into the cold water for the people that aren't watching. He is a very wet man. Anyway, I would really like to thank you all for listening. Okay, this was very unexpected. God damn, I'm kind of starstruck over here. Okay, anyway, thank you all very much for listening. Please let us know what is your way of getting out of your comfort zone. Clearly for Nick, it was jumping into the freezing cold water. But really think of a way. It could be anything, you know, if it is to get out of your house and go to the library, try to do that. If it is taking a cold shower, it's a very easy way to get out of your comfort zone. So please let us know. In the comments, let us know. In the Spotify questions, we'll make sure to put up a question. We would really like to thank you all for listening. As always, take some time to really reflect on the episode and think about what you've heard, if it relates to your life. And we would love to see you next episode. Nick, distance high five.